Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you how I make a Minions, Kit Kat and Smarties lovely jubbly chocolate cake. So the tools and equipment you'll need for the cake itself is some everyday cling film, a very sharp serrated edge knife, a palette knife, and this is my trusty cake board that I use quite a lot for buttercreaming cakes. And then I'm using two delicious round 8-inch chocolate cakes and some absolutely scrummy buttercream. So what I do is I put the cling film on the unit, and that's because I'm a bit messy when I'm cutting the cakes, and this just captures most of the bits that come off the cake. So just level off your cake using your sharp knife, and you'll find that you've got quite a bit left from the top of the cake, and what I do is I put it to one side and I'll use that for cake pops. And then I cut the cake in half again so that I can put some buttercream in between. And what I like to do is put a little slice in the edge of the cake, so when I'm putting the layers back together I know exactly where to place them, because I do forget. A hint and tip as well is if you're putting icing on a cake, turn it over and use that side to get a better edge and a better finish. So again, I'm just leveling the second cake and again placing it to one side, the leftover, so I can make some lovely cake pops later on. Don't waste any of your cake. And then place the cake onto a board, and then place the second cake on top of that before you've cut it in half, so that you can check that the Kit Kat is taller than the cake itself, because at this stage if it isn't, you'd need to be cutting it down. Remember, you've got to place your Minions and your buttercream and everything, but that's just perfect. And then cut the second cake in half and put your slice in. Now if the cake was too high at this stage, you could cut some off, not a problem. And then move the first 3 layers and leave the bottom layer. And then what I like to do is just get my pastry brush and get rid of all those pesky crumbs before I start to put the buttercream on, because you find that they do get in the buttercream and it's just messy and makes it a bit harder to do, that's all. So I like to just give it a final whip up before I put it on, just to make it nice and smooth. And then where the slice is, I put a little bit of buttercream on, because I find that I often forget where I've put it. So once it's covered, you can't see it anymore. So if I put a little bit of buttercream there, I know that that slice is there. So when I'm putting the layers back together, I know where to put them. So smooth out your buttercream right up to the edges of the sponge, and then get your second layer and just place that on top where you've sliced the cakes, and you get a nice even cake finish. And then again, I'm just placing on the chocolate buttercream, smoothing it out right up to the edges. Now this cake I used about 1200 grams of buttercream. So I did 400 grams of butter softened, and I used 800 grams of icing sugar and about 50 grams of sifted cocoa powder and some vanilla extract. So get your third layer, again where you've sliced the cake, put that layer against the slices, put your buttercream on and smooth it out right up to the edges. Now when you're putting your buttercream on, make sure it is flat and even, just so you don't get the cake being higher at one side and lower at the other, otherwise you end up with a lopsided cake, which nobody wants. Again, I'm tidying up with my pastry brush, getting rid of all those bits, and then the last layer, just line it up, and I've pressed it down firmly because this is the last layer and I want to make sure all the layers are stuck together. And then put quite a bit of buttercream on the top, because this is where you're going to be placing your Smarties and Minions. Smoothing it out right up to the edges and give it a nice smooth finish. Doesn't really matter about the finish too much on this cake, and the Kit Kat is still at a right height. There's still plenty of room above to put the Smarties and the Minions. What I'm doing now is just doing a final tidy up, getting rid of all the bits, rubbing down the bottom of the cake drum to get the bits off, and then remove your cling film from your work surface, and ta-da! You've got a nice clean work surface. And then I get what's called a lazy Susan or a spinning board so that I can put my buttercream around the edges of the cake. You don't need to be too methodical with this or too tidy or neat, because remember you're placing Kit Kats and Smarties all around, so you won't be able to see any of it. It's not being iced. So just get the buttercream. You need quite a thick layer all the way around the cake. So just smooth it on and make sure the whole cake's covered. And then this is a really handy tool that I've got. It's a bench scraper, and I like it a lot because it's got a sharp blade, thin blade, and it helps me smooth off the buttercream from the edges of the cake. So what I do is I take some kettle boiled water, really hot water, and I dip the blade in, and then what I do at this stage is I'm taking the buttercream off and smoothing it, but I'm putting it back on. So take it off, put it back on, and this is to fill all the air holes, any gaps that have formed when I was putting the buttercream on. So take it off and pop it back on again. Make sure you're looking to see if there's any gaps or holes that need filling, and using quite a firm hand to push it back on again as well. Keep going till you get to the place where you started, and you find you'll have a little bit of buttercream on, and just scrape it into your bowl. Again, dip the bench scraper into the hot water, and this time I'm just running it all the way around in one go, not taking it off or anything. And again, put the excess in the bowl. Use a hot scraper to smoothen off the top. And then I'm doing a final scrape around the edge just to make sure it's nice and smooth, and as you can see it's really smooth now. And then take your palette knife and dip it in the water, and I'm using this just to smoothen off the edges of the cake and the top of the cake. And then to get rid of any excess buttercream from the edge of the cake board, I just use my bench scraper, spin the board round to get rid of the buttercream and scrape it into the bowl. This just gives you a tidier finish. And then just one final smooth on top, and there you have your cake. And then what I've done is I've prepared a cake drum with blue fondant and put a yellow ribbon and a blue and yellow bow on. And then what I like to do is put some greaseproof paper strips on top of the board, so that when I place the cake, if I need to move it, it's not going to make a mess all over the cake. And this is my cake lifter that I use to put the cake on, like that. And then just gently pull out the greaseproof paper and push the cake back into place if it moves. The greaseproof paper is ideal for doing that. And then just check your cake, make sure it's in the right position, and then take your front piece out. And there you have your cake on your board, and it's not too messy. So what I do is I just take a small palette knife that I've got and just smoothen off the buttercream. And then at this stage I just line up some of the Kit Kats, and I start to open some of them. I don't open them all because you're best having not enough than too many, because if you open too many you may have to eat them. So I think I used about 10-11 Kit Kats this size for this cake. And then what I do is I stack the Kit Kats up. Then when I'm ready, now on this cake, my kitchen was quite warm this evening, so what I did is I just dampened down the cake with a little bit of water. You might not have to do that, but if it does start to crust and you think the chocolate's not going to stick, just do that, and that works a treat. So what I tend to do is, where I've broken off the Kit Kat, I put the two edges back together. It just gives you a much nicer finish for the Kit Kats, and there's no big gaps or anything. So just keep pushing them on firmly all the way around the edge of the cake, pushing any back on that are moving as you're going around. And then once you've got all the Kit Kats on, just get your ribbon, and what I'm doing is I'm just going to tie it firmly on, and this will hold the Kit Kats in place. And I'm putting the bow where the directly above where the bow is on the cake drum, just so it looks right. Then tie your little bow and check your loops, make sure they look nice and they are both the same size. And then tie it tight, and then cut your trails on an angle to finish off the cake bow. And then what I tend to do is just check the ribbons that are right height and the same height all the way around the cake, and use my scissors to go into the grooves of the chocolate Kit Kat, push it up or down, and then make sure it's stuck round all the way around. And then these are some minions that I made earlier. Now I've put a link on here to how I make a minion, so if you want to have a look at that, please do. And on this cake I'm going to put 5 minions. You can put less, you can put more, it's entirely up to you. And this is your centre minion with the arms out. I used just some cocktail sticks to place the arms. Now I put this one in the middle, and then I'm going to place 2 at the front and 2 at the back. Just make sure they're pushed firmly into the buttercream. And this is how it looks with the minions on. And then I've taken 2 tubes of Smarties and just sprinkle them gently into the top of the cake, and using your finger just move them around so that the buttercream is covered up. You don't really want to be seeing patches of buttercream through your Smarties. And then the second tube will just finish it off nicely. If you want to put more you can, or if you want to put less you can, it's up to you. And then just check your cake, make sure it looks right. And what I've done for this one is I've pre-cut some letters and numbers so that I can place the birthday boy's name and age on the front of the cake drum, and I stuck the letters down with water. And then I decided to give it a finishing touch by putting blue and yellow Smarties around the edge of the cake board, which gives it a lovely finishing touch. And I stuck these down with edible glue. And there you have your lovely, fun, adorable Minions, Kit Kat and Smarties cake, ideal for any Minions fan. I do hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful and useful, and thank you very much for watching. If you do want to see more tutorials from me, do subscribe. Bye bye.